I knew my marriage was over before the room went quiet, not when he cleared his throat, not when he smiled too wide, but when I felt that strange calm slide through my chest, the kind that shows up right before something shatters. The restaurant lights were warm, golden, forgiving, too forgiving for what was about to happen. Laughter bounced off the walls, glasses clinked, somebody hugged me and said, "Girl, 25 years, y'all made it." I smiled back. I had no idea that was the last lie I'd tell for him. My name is Loretta Green, and that night, our 25th wedding anniversary was supposed to be a celebration. Family, church friends, coworkers, everybody dressed up. Everybody believing in a love story that had already died quietly in our house months ago. He stood up with his drink like he always did, confident, comfortable, like the world still belonged to him, and maybe he thought it did. "Thank you all for coming," he said, voice smooth, practiced. 25 years is a long time." People nodded. Someone wiped a tear. My sister squeezed my hand. Then he paused. That pause stretched too long. "And sometimes," he continued, "you realize that long doesn't always mean right." The air shifted. I felt my spine straighten before my mind could catch up. He kept going, didn't even look at me. "I've outgrown this marriage," he said. "I want something different, someone different." Gasps, whispers, forks froze midair. Then he finally turned toward me. "I need you out of the apartment by tomorrow." Tomorrow, like I was a bad habit. Like I'd overstayed my welcome in my own life. My ears rang, my heart didn't race, it slowed. That's how I knew something inside me was waking up. He smiled again, soft, almost kind. The smile men wear when they think they've already won. "I deserve happiness," he added, "and I'm choosing it." What he didn't know, what he forgot in his arrogance, was that the apartment he was kicking me out of was never his, but I didn't say that yet, not then. Because some moments need silence before they need truth. People stared at me like I might collapse, like I might cry, scream, beg. That's what they expected. That's what women my age are supposed to do when their world cracks open in public. But I didn't move. I felt my grandmother's voice rise up from somewhere deep. "Baby, don't rush your power, let it stand on its own." So I stayed seated. Let him have his moment. Let him believe the story ended there. Because what nobody in that room knew, not him, not his smug little confidence, was that this night wasn't the end of my story. It was the opening scene of his consequences. And before I tell you how it really began, before the marriage, before the warning signs, before the slow erasing of myself, I want you to understand something. This wasn't just about betrayal. It was about ownership, about silence. About what happens when a woman finally remembers who she was before she started shrinking. And trust me, by the time that microphone came back into my hands, the room would never sound the same again. But to understand how we got there, I need to take you back. Back to when love felt safe. Back to when I believed forever meant equal. Back to the first promise I ever broke to myself. That's where this really starts. Before I became the woman sitting in that restaurant, holding herself together with quiet dignity, I was just a girl who believed love could fix anything. I met Derek Coleman when I was 27. It was late summer, thick heat. Music playing too loud in somebody's backyard on the south side of the city. I had on a yellow sundress and borrowed confidence. He had a laugh that carried, the kind that made people turn their heads without realizing why. He noticed me before I noticed him. "You don't look like you belong in the corner," he said, handing me a plate like he already knew me. I laughed. That laugh came easy back then. Derek was 2 years older, ambitious, charming in a way that felt intentional. He talked about the future like it was a place he was already headed: career, family, stability. I was working a steady admin job, helping my aunt pay bills, dreaming quietly instead of loudly. He made my quiet feel important. We moved fast, not reckless, just confident, or so I thought. Within a year we were engaged. 2 years later, married in a small church where my grandmother had once sung in the choir. I remember standing at the altar thinking, this is it. This is the man who will see me forever. My grandmother, Miss Evelyn, hugged me afterward and whispered, "Love him, baby, but don't lose yourself doing it." I nodded. I didn't understand yet. The early years were simple: small apartment, hand-me-down furniture. Shared dreams scribbled on napkins at the kitchen table. Derek chased commissions, I chased stability. When money got tight, I picked up extra hours. When he got discouraged, I held him up. We became parents. First a son, then a daughter. Life filled the space where silence used to be, sleepless nights, school lunches, church on Sundays, laughter that felt earned. From the outside we looked solid, and for a long time we were. But somewhere along the way the balance shifted so quietly I didn't notice. I started adjusting before he asked, shrinking before there was pressure, apologizing for things I hadn't done. When he succeeded, I celebrated him. When I succeeded, I downplayed it. That's how love changes when you're not paying attention. I became the steady one, the reliable one, the woman who made everything work while he reached for more, and I told myself that was partnership. I told myself that was strength. What I didn't see, what I couldn't see yet, was how slowly I was disappearing. The late nights hadn't started yet, the distance didn't have a shape, the disrespect didn't have a voice. But the foundation was already shifting. And the truth is, by the time the cracks became obvious, they had been growing for years. I just didn't know what to call them yet. And that's where the real story begins. The first warning didn't come with shouting or slammed doors, it came softly. So softly I almost missed it. It was the year Derek turned 50. At first it looked harmless, almost admirable. He joined a gym, bought new clothes. Started caring about cologne again, the kind that smells expensive and unfamiliar. I told myself this was normal, midlife health, self-care, growth. That's what wives tell themselves when they want to believe. But then the nights got longer. "I've got to stay late," he'd say, already reaching for his keys. "Big project, client thing." At first it was once a week, then twice. Then suddenly I couldn't remember the last time we ate dinner together without a phone buzzing between us. He stopped asking about my day, not dramatically, just gradually, like someone slowly turning down the volume on a song you used to love. I noticed it one night while folding laundry. His shirt smelled different, not sweat. Not soap, something sharper, colder. I held the fabric a second longer than necessary, my chest tightening for reasons I couldn't explain. My sister noticed before I said anything. "You good?" she asked after Sunday dinner, watching Derek laugh too hard at his phone. "I'm fine," I said automatically, but she didn't let it go. "He different," she said quietly. "You see it right?" I laughed it off, defended him. Because that's what I had learned to do. The first real crack came during a conversation that should have been nothing. I asked calmly why he was coming home so late so often. He turned to me with a look I didn't recognize. "Why you always questioning me?" he snapped. "I'm working for this family and you acting insecure." Insecure, that word landed harder than I expected. He kept going. "That kind of thinking is toxic, Loretta. You need to check that." Toxic. By the end of the conversation, I was the one apologizing. That night, lying beside him while he scrolled on his phone with his back turned to me, I stared at the ceiling and felt something new creep in. Doubt, not about him, about myself. I told myself I was imagining things, that marriage goes through phases, that long love stretches thin sometimes, but deep down a quiet voice whispered something I didn't want to hear: pay attention. I didn't know it yet, but this was the moment where I could have stopped everything from going as far as it did. Instead, I chose peace over truth, and that choice would cost me more than I was ready for. After that night, I started measuring my words, not consciously, it just happened. I stopped asking questions that might turn into arguments, stopped mentioning how late he came home, stopped expecting tenderness where it no longer lived. Peace became my goal, and silence became the price. Derek's phone was the first thing he touched in the morning and the last thing he put down at night. It stayed face down on the table now. Password protected, guarded like it held state secrets. For over 20 years, we never had passwords. I told myself that didn't mean anything until the night his phone buzzed while he was in the shower. I wasn't snooping, I swear that. It was right there on the counter. The name flashed before I could look away. "Nia, 2 hearts, can't wait to see you tomorrow." My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might throw up. When he came out, steam still clinging to his skin, I asked him casually, too casually, who Nia was. He didn't miss a beat. "Work friend," he said. "Why?" I didn't push, didn't ask why a work friend sent hearts. Didn't ask why tomorrow sounded like a promise, because the way he looked at me dared me to question him, and I was tired. After that, everything changed faster. Affection disappeared like it had been switched off. He came to bed late, turned his back, scrolled until sleep took him. We stopped touching, stopped laughing, stopped existing in the same emotional space. Then came the comments, small at first. "You don't dress up like you used to." That food a little heavy, don't you think? Women at my job really take care of themselves. Each one landed quietly, each one stayed. I found myself standing longer in front of mirrors. Googling workouts at 5 in the morning, buying clothes I didn't even like just to feel chosen again, but no matter what I did, the distance stayed, because it wasn't about attraction, it was about power. He started treating me less like a partner and more like a convenience. Dishes left in the sink, questions barked instead of asked. What's for dinner? Did you handle that bill? You forgot to. The man who once thanked me for everything now acted like I existed to manage his life. And the worst part, I let it happen, because I thought holding the marriage together meant holding myself back. Then I noticed the looks, at church, at gatherings, women getting quiet when I approached, smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. Someone knew something, everyone knew something, and the truth I was avoiding began knocking louder. My marriage wasn't just breaking, it had already been replaced, I just hadn't been informed yet. And soon, very soon, I wouldn't have the luxury of pretending anymore. The thing about denial is that it's loud, it fills your head with excuses, keeps you busy rewriting reality. Tells you that if you just try harder, love will come back home, but proof is quiet. And when it shows up, it lands with a sound you never forget. It happened on an ordinary afternoon. I was clearing the kitchen table, sorting mail, doing life on autopilot. Derek's suit jacket was draped over the chair, heavy, careless. I picked it up to hang it, nothing more than routine. That's when I felt something stiff in the inside pocket. A receipt, hotel, downtown, 2 nights. My hands went cold. I stood there staring at that thin strip of paper like it might rearrange itself into something harmless if I waited long enough. It didn't. When he came home that night, I didn't raise my voice, didn't cry. I placed the receipt on the counter between us like evidence in a courtroom. What's this? I asked. He didn't even blink. Conference, he said. You know that? I didn't, but the confidence in his lie made me hesitate. That was his gift, certainty, delivered so smoothly it made you doubt your own memory. More charges appeared after that, restaurants I'd never been to. Withdrawals from our joint account that he didn't explain, gifts I never received. When I asked, he sighed like I was exhausting. You always looking for problems, he said. Why can't you just trust me? And just like that, I was backpedaling again, questioning myself, wondering if stress had made me suspicious, if age had made me insecure. Then my son noticed. He was home one evening, sitting at the table while Derek spoke to me without looking up from his phone. Sharp, dismissive. Afterward, my son pulled me aside. Mom, he said gently, that's not how a husband talks to his wife. Something broke open in my chest. Because when your child sees what you've been hiding from yourself, there's nowhere left to run. A week later, Derek stopped wearing his wedding ring, just took it off. When I asked why, he shrugged. Gets in the way. That's when I knew. Not suspected, not feared, knew. I started documenting everything. Screenshots, bank statements, dates, times, not because I wanted revenge, because something in me finally woke up and whispered, protect yourself. My best friend urged me to talk to a lawyer. Just to know your rights, she said. I made the appointment and didn't tell Derek. For the first time in decades, I had a secret too. And as I sat in that quiet office listening to words like financial misuse and adultery, I realized something that made my hands tremble. This wasn't just a marriage ending. This was a man trying to erase me, and I was done disappearing. But the worst proof, the kind you can't unsee, was still waiting. And it would arrive wearing a smile, posted online for the world to admire. I just didn't know it yet. The night my daughter graduated should have been perfect. She'd worked hard, late nights, early mornings, years of discipline wrapped up in one proud moment. We had reservations at her favorite restaurant, family coming in from different cities. Laughter planned, photos ready. Derek promised he'd be there. 2 hours before dinner, my phone buzzed. Something came up at work. Can't make it, tell her I'm sorry. I stared at the message longer than I should have. I didn't argue, didn't call. Didn't beg, I just swallowed it like I had swallowed everything else. At dinner, I smiled for my daughter, made excuses for her father, told jokes, held my composure together with pins and prayer. But I watched her eyes search the room one too many times. 2 days later, she sat beside me on the couch, phone in her hand. Mom, she said quietly, can I show you something? The photo filled the screen, Derek at a restaurant. The same night as her graduation, sitting across from a young woman, beautiful, polished, no older than 30. Her hand rested on the table like she belonged there. The caption read, "Special night with my favorite person, tagged location." Tagged time, my chest went hollow. I didn't scream, didn't cry, I felt clear. When Derek walked through the door that evening, I showed him the photo. He exploded. "You stalking me now?" he snapped. "That's crazy, Loretta." "You need help?" He didn't deny it. That's what hurt the most. "You let yourself go," he continued. "You always tired, always emotional. She's fun, she's light." Fun, light, as if decades of loyalty weighed less than youth. That night, he moved into the guest room. Our marriage ended without papers, without ceremony, without apology. And somehow, I still hadn't seen the worst of him. Because when a man thinks he's done with you, when he believes you're already defeated, that's when he gets bold. That's when he starts planning his exit and his victory. Our 25th anniversary was 2 weeks away, and Derek told me, smiling that same confident smile, "Don't worry, I've got something special planned." I didn't know it then. But that wasn't a promise, it was a warning. After that night, the house felt different. Not heavy, empty. Derek moved through the apartment like a visitor who'd already packed his bags mentally. Short answers, no eye contact. A strange lightness in his step, like a man who believed freedom was already his. And I let him believe it. That was the hardest part, pretending I was broken when something inside me was quietly sharpening. 2 weeks before our anniversary, he asked me to sit down. No softness, no lead-in. "I'm not happy," he said. "I haven't been for years." Years, that word rewrote our entire history in one sentence. "I want a divorce." I remember the room tilting, my chest tightening like it forgot how to breathe. I asked stupidly if we could try counseling. He laughed, actually laughed. "There's nothing to fix," he said. "I've moved on." Then he said her name and her age, younger than our marriage, younger than our memories, younger than the life I built while he was busy chasing a feeling. "She makes me feel young," he added. "We're in different places now." Different places, like loyalty was a location you grow out of. Then came the sentence he thought would finish me. "I need you out of the apartment." Not "we'll figure things out," not "let's be respectful," out. By the end of the month, he spoke like a landlord, like I was temporary. I didn't argue, didn't remind him of everything I'd given, didn't collapse the way he expected. I just nodded. That night, I called my sister and told her everything. She listened, silent, focused. Then she said something that stopped my tears mid-fall. "Loretta, that apartment is in your name." The words hit like thunder. Mine, not ours, mine. Something shifted right then, deep, irreversible. Grief didn't leave, but it stepped aside, and power walked in. The next morning, I sat in a lawyer's office with documents spread across a desk like pieces of a life I was finally reclaiming. The deed, the bank records, the proof. And when the lawyer looked up and said, "He has no claim to your home," I felt oxygen return to my lungs. That's when I decided something Derek never saw coming. If he wanted to end things publicly, if he wanted to humiliate me in front of everyone, I would let him. Because sometimes the best way to survive betrayal is to let it expose itself. And the anniversary party. It was already planned, he just didn't know yet that it wasn't going to be his stage. It was going to be mine. Once the decision settled in my bones, everything got quiet, not peaceful, focused. I moved through my days like a woman with a secret compass, smiling when expected, agreeing when necessary, letting Derek believe I was unraveling while I was actually stitching myself back together. The lawyer moved fast, papers drafted. Evidence organized, every detail lined up clean and precise. There would be no confusion, no room for his version of events. At home, I played my role. I told Derek I'd start looking for a place. I nodded when he talked about the anniversary dinner like it was still something to celebrate. I didn't challenge him when he said it would be good for appearances. He thought he was managing me. He didn't realize I was managing the moment. My sister came over the night before the party with dresses spread across my bed like options for a different life. She looked at me, eyes sharp. "You ready?" I didn't hesitate. "Yeah," I said. "I'm done being quiet." They helped me get ready the next day, hair done with care, makeup soft but strong. I chose a dress that fit not just my body but my spine. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see a woman about to be left. I saw a woman about to be heard. Before we left, I placed my phone carefully on a shelf in the living room. Angle perfect, sound on, not for drama, for truth, because when a man realizes he's losing control, he'll try to rewrite the story. I wasn't giving him that chance. As we drove to the restaurant, my hands were steady. My heart was loud but not scared. Derek wanted an audience. He'd get one, but not the way he planned. And when I stepped through those doors dressed in calm confidence, I felt it, the shift. The air knew something was coming. The night was already leaning toward consequence. And Derek, he was smiling like a man who thought the ending belonged to him. It didn't, not anymore. The restaurant was full before we even sat down. Soft music, candlelight. That polished kind of elegance meant to make people believe in forever. Friends hugged me, family complimented my dress, someone whispered, "Y'all look good," and for a split second I almost laughed. Derek stood near the bar holding court like always, confident, relaxed. He spotted me and paused just a fraction too long. I saw it, that flicker of uncertainty, but he recovered fast. Dinner moved slowly, conversations overlapped. Glasses refilled. Laughter rose and fell like waves. I barely tasted my food, not because I was nervous, but because I was listening, waiting. Then Derek stood. He tapped his glass, smiling that familiar smile, the one that used to make me feel safe. The room quieted instantly. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight," he said. 25 years is a long time." People nodded. A few clapped softly. He went on about memories, about growth, about how life changes. And for a moment, if you didn't know better, you might have believed this was a tribute. Then his voice shifted. "But sometimes," he said, "you have to be honest with yourself." The room leaned in. I realized I want something different, someone younger. Someone who makes me feel alive again. Gasps rippled across the tables. I stayed still. "Loretta and I are done," he continued, "and I've asked her to move out so we can both move forward." Silence crashed down like broken glass. My mother froze. My sister stood halfway out of her chair. Faces turned toward me, waiting for tears, for collapse, for mercy. Derek looked at me, satisfied. That's when I stood, slowly, calmly, every movement deliberate. "May I?" I asked, reaching for the microphone. Confusion flickered across his face, but he handed it over. He thought I was about to beg. The room went so quiet I could hear my own breath. "Thank you all for coming," I said. My voice didn't shake. 25 years is significant, but there's something important Derek forgot to mention. I reached into my purse and pulled out a folded document. "This apartment he's asking me to leave," I continued. "It's mine, purchased with my money. My name is the only one on the deed." Murmurs exploded. Derek's face drained of color. "And since we're being honest tonight," I added, "these are divorce papers, filed." Citing adultery, a woman stood up from the crowd and stepped forward, calm, professional, placing the envelope directly into Derek's hands. I met his eyes. "So no," I said softly, "I'm not leaving, you are." The room erupted, gasps. Whispers, a few stunned laughs. My sister shouted my name, someone clapped, someone else said, "Lord have mercy." I handed the microphone back, picked up my purse and turned toward the door. I didn't look back because I didn't need to. That sound behind me, the silence mixed with shock, that was the sound of power changing hands. And for the first time in years, I walked out whole. I didn't feel the shaking until I reached the car. That's when my hands finally trembled, not from fear, but from release. 25 years of swallowing words had just left my body in one clean breath. My phone started buzzing before I even turned the key. Calls, messages. Missed calls stacked on top of each other like panic. I didn't answer a single one. That night, I went home to my apartment and locked the door behind me like I was sealing a chapter shut. By morning, the story had already grown legs. Friends called to check on me. Church members reached out, voices hushed and reverent. My sister laughed into the phone and said, "Baby, you became a legend last night." Derek's messages shifted fast. At first, he was angry. "You embarrassed me. You blindsided me. That was unnecessary." Then desperate, "Let's talk. We don't have to do this, please." I blocked his number. Because once a man shows you who he is in public, there's nothing left to discuss in private. Within days, the consequences started stacking up. The woman he left me for disappeared. No explanation, no goodbye. Turns out confidence looks different when the fantasy collapses. He had nowhere to go, nowhere that felt like home. Mutual friends stopped answering his calls. His family went quiet. Even his mother called me, not to defend him but to apologize. "I didn't raise him this way," she said, "and I'm sorry you had to be the one to teach him." The lawyer moved quickly. Too much evidence, too many receipts, too much truth. Derek tried to regain control, asked for meetings, mediation, forgiveness before accountability. But power doesn't return once it's been reclaimed. The man who once told me I had nothing without him was now learning what nothing actually felt like. And as the noise around him grew louder, my world grew quieter, not empty, peaceful, but the story wasn't finished yet because humiliation fades, consequences don't. And the final truth, the one that would settle everything, was still coming. Derek thought time would soften me, that if he stayed quiet long enough, I'd start to miss the version of him that never really existed. That I'd get tired of standing alone in my truth and invite him back into a lie that felt familiar. He was wrong. 2 months after the party, he showed up at my door, late, unsteady, smelling like regret and cheap whiskey. "Loretta," he said through the door, voice thick, "we need to talk." I didn't open it. "This is my home," I said calmly. "You're not welcome here," he pleaded, apologized, blamed stress, blamed age. Blamed a so-called midlife moment like it was a weather condition that just happened to him. "I made a mistake," he said. "I lost myself." What he really lost was access. I called the police. Not to punish him, but to protect the boundary I'd earned. When they arrived and explained he was trespassing, something finally broke in his eyes. The illusion. A few weeks later, the divorce papers were finalized. No drama. No drawn-out battle. The facts were too clean, the truth too documented. The apartment stayed mine. The accounts were split fairly. And the man who once demanded I disappear from his life and now had to send me a check every month. Irony has a quiet sense of humor. Our children chose distance, not because I asked them to, but because they saw everything. They watched their mother stand tall without raising her voice, and it taught them something no lecture ever could. Derek's life shrank, mine expanded. I slept better, breathed deeper, laughed without checking who was listening. I repainted the walls, rearranged the furniture, turned the guest room into a space that belonged to me. Sometimes I'd catch my reflection in the mirror and pause, not because I missed him, but because I recognized myself again. And that was the real victory. But the ending of a marriage isn't the end of a woman's story. It's the moment she decides what comes next, and I was just getting started. The quiet after a storm feels strange at first. You keep waiting for thunder, for another crash, for someone to demand something from you, but nothing comes. That's when healing starts, awkward, unfamiliar, honest. I began therapy because I wanted to understand how I'd lost myself without realizing it, not to blame him, not even to forgive him. Just to learn how I ended up shrinking in a space that was supposed to be safe. What I learned changed everything. I learned that love doesn't ask you to disappear, that loyalty doesn't require silence, that strength doesn't need permission. I learned that what I experienced wasn't just heartbreak, it was erosion. Years of being questioned, corrected, minimized until I started doing it to myself. Naming that was painful, releasing it was freeing. I rebuilt my routines slowly, morning walks without rushing, music playing just because I liked it, cooking meals that felt indulgent instead of practical, saying no without explaining why. The apartment transformed with me. New colors, new light. I turned the old guest room into an office and filled it with books, plants, and space to think. Every change whispered the same truth. You're allowed to take up room. Friends came back into focus. Conversations felt lighter. Laughter didn't feel borrowed. I joined a book club, took a dance class I'd always wanted to try, traveled with my sister just because we could. And somewhere along the way, I stopped defining my life by what I survived. I started defining it by what I chose. People asked if I'd ever date again. I smiled and said maybe, not because I was afraid, but because I was finally content. For the first time in decades, my life didn't orbit around someone else's needs, moods, or approval. It revolved around peace, and peace, I learned, is addictive. But before this story could truly end, there was one last moment, one final test. And it would come from the very man who thought I'd still be waiting. I wasn't. It was almost a year later when the call came. New number, same voice. I knew it the moment I answered. "Loretta," Derek said softly, like we were old friends sharing a memory instead of two people separated by truth. "I've been thinking a lot." I didn't interrupt him. That alone told me how far I'd come. "I made a terrible mistake," he continued. "I was going through something. I lost myself. I miss us. I miss you." I leaned back against the kitchen counter and listened, not with hope, not with anger, but with clarity. He talked about regret, about loneliness, about how things didn't turn out the way he imagined. Not once did he ask how I was, not once did he name what he did. and that told me everything. You didn't lose me because you were confused, I said calmly. You lost me because you were cruel. Silence. You didn't just leave, I continued. You tried to erase me. And I survived that. He started to say my name again, softer this time, like a key he hoped would still fit the lock. It doesn't work anymore, I said. I finally believe who you showed me you were. The line went quiet. And in that quiet, I felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. I wished him well not because he deserved it, but because I deserved peace. Then I ended the call and blocked the number without ceremony. No shaking hands, no tears. Just finality. That night I stood in my living room and looked around at the life I'd rebuilt, slowly, intentionally, honestly. And I understood something deep and true. Closure isn't something someone gives you, it's something you choose. And I had chosen myself. All that was left now was to live. I'm not the woman I was when this story began. That woman believed love meant endurance. That silence meant maturity. That staying meant strength. This woman knows better. Strength is choosing yourself when no one else will. Peace is walking away without needing applause. Power is remembering who you were before you learned to shrink. Sometimes I think about my younger self, the one in the yellow sundress, laughing easily, believing forever was guaranteed. I don't judge her anymore. She did the best she could with what she knew, and she built a life that eventually taught her how to save herself. Today, my home is mine, my time is mine, my voice is mine. And the man who tried to make me feel replaceable, he became a lesson, not a scar, just a chapter. If you're listening to this and something in your chest feels tight, if you've been quiet too long, if you've been asked to leave yourself behind to keep someone else comfortable, hear me clearly. You are not too old, you are not invisible, you are not done. Sometimes what feels like the end is actually the first moment you finally stand up straight. And when you do, the world adjusts, not the other way around. If this story stayed with you, if any part of it felt uncomfortably familiar, please know this: you are not alone. Stories like this don't end when the video stops. They live in the quiet moments after. In the courage it takes to finally say enough. If this story meant something to you, tap the like button so it can reach someone else who needs to hear it tonight. If you believe real stories can protect, awaken, and heal, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We share true-to-life stories every week about betrayal, resilience, quiet strength, and the power of choosing yourself. And if you feel safe, share your thoughts in the comments. Did you see the warning signs before the truth came out? Would you have stayed silent or stood your ground? I read every comment. Your voice matters more than you think. Until next time, trust your intuition, protect what's yours, and never let anyone convince you that your worth has an expiration date. Stay aware, stay strong, and remember your story isn't over yet.